to join. So if you recap, yesterday we were talking about the closed circulatory system, and we have seen that it's found in the animals like annelids, echinoderms, cephalopods, and other higher animals also, where we have got a well-evolved circulatory system. So the circulation takes place through the arteries and the veins. So now coming, and this is happening because how is the blood flowing into the body? So it cannot all of a sudden, if with the great pressure, if it is flown inside our body, then there is a chances of the arteries getting damaged, and either in the arteries or the veins, the blood has to move with a specific standard pressure, and we called it as a blood pressure. So let us see how this, what should be the blood pressure or with which this blood has to flow in the body. In any healthy individual, 120 by 80 is where the numerator is 120 and denominator is 80. And the 120 is called as the systolic, and 80 is called as the diastolic. So this is the standard and normal blood pressure. With this pressure, the blood has to flow in our body. If this changes, then there would be a health issues. You will have problems inside the bodies because small arteries may get damaged. So the instrument that is used is called as sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer, most of the time this question is asked in the short questions. The instrument used for measuring the blood pressure. So it is called sphygmomanometer. So some people who have got high blood pressure, that means it has to be more than 120 by 80. If they are having something like 150 by 90, 160 by 100, something like that, then it is considered as high blood pressure, and it is called as hypertension. Hypertension, again, high blood pressure is English word. Then hypertension must be either Greek or Latin. Hyper means excess tension. So it is that because of tension, it becomes high. Stress and tension is the main cause, and there are many other factors also. One of the reason for the hypertension is blocking of arteries by cholesterol. So why it happens is, reason, if the arteries are blocked because of cholesterol, the blood flow becomes very difficult, because then from this narrow area the blood cannot flow, and then the heart has to pump vigorously. So that is one of the cause of high blood pressure. And then the constant stress and strain for a long time, improper functioning of the kidneys, smoking, alcohol consumptions are some of the reasons for high blood pressure. The people who don't have a proper lifestyle and they are always in stress. Smoking is also very dangerous, that also causes, and alcoholism, sharab peene ki jisko aadat hoti hai. So these all are very dangerous, and hypertension can be prevented by diet control, moderate exercises, avoiding stress and strain, and avoiding alcohol consumption, smoking. So everyday walking exercises are very important. Now coming to coagulation of blood. What do you mean by coagulation of blood? Have you ever observed, supposing you have an injury or you fall down and if there is a cut, so how long do you think that it keeps bleeding, and after how much time it stops bleeding? Have anybody observed it?
Like it bleeds just for a minute when it's about the finger, not more than a minute.
Not even minute, I think for a few seconds it bleeds, and then it stops. It's for a very short time. But if it is bleeding for a long time and there will be a loss of blood, then you have to rush up and run to the hospital, because maybe certain main arteries are it's a deep cut and there is a need to have stitches done. Why is it happening? So we have got a natural system called coagulation. ये blood को रोकने के लिए हमारी बॉडी के अंदर ही कुछ ऐसी चीजें रहते हैं. Whenever there is a cut, God has made all repairing and alternate methods in our body. But because if these things are happening by accident, you have to be very careful. लेकिन बाज वक्त छोटा मोटा चीज हो जाती है because of छोटा cuts बोले तो body can take care. But if you are very careless, you are going with a high, going on a high speed vehicle, driving, not taking any precautions, and if you met with an accident, then the बहुत major जब cuts हो जाते हैं and all, then you have to rush to the hospital. Otherwise, nature itself is taking care of all this. If there is an accidental cut for sometimes in a few minutes only, it stops because of a chemical reaction inside our body. हमारे cells खुद, they are so friendly and they start helping each other in healing. That is the reason, your nature is also very important. If you are very good, you are having more friends and you talk all positively, so your cells inside you also starts working positively. And if you are fighting with everybody, always in stress, you think negative about others, then your cells also starts doing that. So when it comes, when there is a cut, all the cells wants to join together to help. So they will not come to help each other. That is the reason it is very important that you have to make yourself helping others and, be friendly, try to understand the problems of other people so that the systems in your body also function accordingly. So this is called coagulation. Coagulation is this, whenever it happens, your body itself stops it through a process called coagulation. So let us see how is this coagulation taking place. You can see that how it is, the blood is, now it has stopped itself after some time. So the platelets plays an important role in the clotting of the blood. The clot is within 3 to 6 minutes. Automatically what happens inside the body, we have got platelets. The platelets come, जहाँ पर भी wound रहता है, they come rushing towards that wound and they block that passage so that there is no loss of blood from there. And उसको बोलते हैं, we call it clotting. आप लोग देखे होंगे generally, small young children, when they are playing, when they fall down, उनके knees get hurt. तो नीज अगर वहां पर ब्लीडिंग होने के बाद थोड़े दिन के बाद, थोड़ी देर के बाद, और नेक्स्ट डे यू विल फाइंड वेरी हार्ड, आप लोग बोलते हैं खिपली आ गई उसके ऊपर. सो दैट हार्ड थिंग दैट हैज कम ऑन दैट वूंड इज नथिंग बट द प्लेटलेट्स दैट हैव बीन accumulated to stop that. अंदर से ही there is some bandage like that has been produced and that has stopped the further bleeding and the loss of blood from the body. So this is called clotting, coagulation or clotting of blood. So then the cut is filled with a reddish solid material which is called blood clot. The platelets collects at the site of the injury and this reduces the loss of blood to some extent, as I've told you. But they also release several factors in the blood which help blood clotting and in the repairing and healing of the blood vessels. So this all has got a mechanism. That is what I was thinking. When you are relaxed, you think during COVID time also, what were they saying? It is psychologically people who were very much scared and whose body's immunity, when you are in a tension and anxiety, your immunity also gets disturbed. So this immunity system was getting affected during that time. So this repairing and the healing, so normal secretions of the hormones and the thrombosis, as well as the fibrins that has to be released will get delayed and then you will have problems. So repair and healing, otherwise, if everything is normal, things will be, body itself will take care of most of the injuries. So when the blood flows out, the platelets releases an enzyme. Remember, this is a very important enzyme called thrombokinase. If thrombokinase enzyme is not released, then clotting platelets get an information because thrombokinase, जैसे ही आपको hurt होता है, your brain में pituitary gland रहेगा, master of the gland, which immediately informs the other glands. तो वहां पर से एक हार्मोन सीक्रेट होगा, एंजाइम सीक्रेट होगा, that is called thrombokinase. When this thrombokinase is secreted, then your body knows कि वहां पर injury है and all these platelets has to rush there and stop this injury. So this acts of a substance prothrombin converting into thrombin. तो वहां पर एक substance रहेगा called prothrombin, and this prothrombin substance is called as fibrin, that is present in the dissolved state, converting it into the insoluble fibrin. So this is important, just note it down. Yes, Ramsha.
I should read this, which is
Yes,
showing, which is
yes.
marked as.
Marked and then arrows. How is this
Yes.
entire process taking place? Yes.
Okay. Prothrombin, then thrombokinase
Prothrombin,
by
you have to say
Ca.
prothrombin in the presence of thrombokinase enzyme and calcium gives rise to active thrombin. Okay.
Okay.
Mm.
Yes. Prothrombin give in the presence of thrombokinase
Kinase.
in give by Ca give rise
Ca is
to
calcium.
thrombin, which is
Ca is
active.
the symbol for calcium.
Okay, which gives rise to thrombin active, which gives rise to fibrinogen soluble. Then it gives rise to insoluble fibrin.
Very good. So that is how the entire process takes place for when clotting has to take place and the platelets has to get accumulated in the near the injury. Anybody else would like to give a try? Yes. Yeah, Arbas. Good.
Prothrombin take place in the thrombokinase by calcium, then they release thrombin active, and then fibrinogen solution, and then fibrin insoluble.
Soluble fibrinogen and then insoluble fibrin. Very good. So now let us see how the blood cells entangle in the fibrin and fibers forming a clot. So now this insoluble fibrin is created, which helps the fibers to attach to the edge of the wound and pull them together. This straw-like yellowish colored fluid protein after the formation of the clot is called serum. So the people who have got vitamin K deficiency, for them this clotting doesn't take place. So this type of disorder is called hemophilia. This is genetic disorder, and it is also called as a royal disease because it has started from a royal family. I think Queen Elizabeth's families or somebody where this disease exists, where they have, if they have any injury, they don't have this coagulation method that takes place. And this type of disorder is called hemophilia, where the blood doesn't stop clotting. So you can see that genetically it has come from forefathers to this. Every generation it continues in the family. And hemophilia is common disorder in the children who have born from marriages between very close relatives. It also happens if the close relatives get married, then the children have got the possibility of getting this disease called hemophilia. And there is one more this thing, disorder that is called thalassemia. And this is also an inherited disorder, and it is also related to the blood clotting. So now let us see, hemophilia is a common disorder in children who have born from marriages between very close relatives. And how are the materials transported within? Let us see. There is a vast transport system in continual supply of essential nutrients and oxygen to perform these metabolic activities. And to remove this excretory substance, it is found that each cell in an animal body is responsible. Every cell has to do that. So Van Helmont's experiments, we have seen it earlier also in the root plants. So he has carried out his experiments, and where he wanted to show how water is absorbed from the roots and food is prepared in the leaves, and then it is supplied to all parts of the body through vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem, which we have already read. The roots that contains the xylem tissue is situated towards the exterior in the stem, and it is arranged in the bundle towards the center. Let us see this activity to see how this water is absorbed. Now our aim of the experiment is to show that water is absorbed by the root hairs. What we are saying is water is showing upward pressure. The tissues that are present in the roots shows upwards pressure. So water that is absorbed by the underground roots are supplied to all parts of the plant, including leaves. So what material we are taking? We are taking mustard seedlings, a filter paper, a slide, water, cover slip, and a microscope, and as well a hand lens. So in this procedure, what are we doing? We are roots of are just the hair-like structures that are originating in the cells of a single layer epidermis. So we are putting it onto a glass slide and then dropping some water on it and covering it with a cover slip, and with the tissue paper we are making it dry, and then we are observing it under the microscope. So under the microscope you can see all these structures. You know what all are these structures? You please the root hairs that are let me.
Okay.
So now let's see what happens now. So these root hairs grows out into spaces between the soil particles and the hair surrounded by the moisture. So this is how the water from the roots and the water molecules through the xylem tissues moves upwards and supplies it to the branches, leaves, and all parts of the plant. And every living cell acts as an osmosis system. Osmosis system, you have read it so many times in your 8th and 9th class also. Would anybody would like to give a try to what do you mean by osmosis? And in your recent classes also, I have explained you what is osmosis. So all this, you know, semi-permeable membranes inside the cytoplasm, the cell wall has covered by a semi-permeable membrane, and this helps as in the osmotic system. Who could tell me what do you mean by osmosis? Anybody who is ready? And I was giving this, you know, performance marks recording work to Alina, but most of the time she's absent. So Ramsha, would you like to do this? When the students are answering it, you have to give the marks and then post it into the group so that Durga ma'am can note it down in the.
Yes.
Yeah, so please note down the marks for them. So who could tell me what is osmosis?
I can.
Yes, yes, tell please. Yes, Ramsha.
Osmosis is absorption of water taking place.
From where to where?
From outside to inside.
No, we have done a potato experiment also when it is kept into the plain water and then the sugar solution. What did you observe? What happened when it was in the plain water? Potato was kept in the plain water. What did you observe? When it was in the plain water, you have observed that the potato swelled and its size increased, because the water always moves from lower to higher concentration. So inside the potato, the concentration was high. But whereas when you kept the same potato in a sugar solution, the outside concentration was higher. So the water that was from the potato started coming out of the potato. So the potato size reduced. So this is the process of osmosis. Wherever the concentration is high, these semi-permeable membrane will allow the flow towards in that direction. So that is called osmosis. Are you all clear with the concept of osmosis, students? Show me a thumbs up through your reaction box. Okay, so let's move ahead. So now you can see, therefore, water will pass into the vacuoles of the root hair by this process of osmosis. So that is how this osmosis is also helping in the conduction. Towards the higher concentration, the water is moving. And they enter into the water, dilute the content of the roots, and thus it following the neighboring cells, which turn diluted, and finally water enters into the xylem vessels. And xylem vessels, they create a pressure which develops this, forces this water to move towards the upward direction. This total pressure is called. So what are we observing? It is observed that water is present in the xylem vessels. So we conclude from this that the root hair absorbs water with minimum salt into the transport tissue, which is called as the xylem vessels, by a process of osmosis. So we will do an activity to see the root pressure. How is this root pressure working? This root pressure is also a very common question that you get in your exams. So we wanted to check the root pressure. So what materials we are taking? We are taking a potted plant with a cut stem, a rubber tube, glass tube, and a water, and then we are pouring water into it, and then we cut a leaf from the stem portion that is 1 centimeter above, and then we connected the glass tube by means of a strong rubber tube. The size of the glass tube should be equal to the size of the stem. And then what we are taking care of joining this tube and the stem tightly so that the water cannot escape from the tube. Now you pour some water in the glass tube until water level can be seen above the rubber tube. Now you start marking the level of the water, M1 in the tube, and keep the arrangement aside for 2 to 3 minutes. Then observe and mark level M2 in the tube. So what you are seeing is, the water level of the water increased. So this shows that the concentration in the tube is more than the water concentration from the plant. That is the reason the water is flowing over there and it is raised in the stem. And this also shows that from the root is conducting water through the xylem vessels through a process of osmosis, and the water is passing through xylem vessels into the stem. Because it is reaching the stem, it could enter into the test tube. So this proves that the conduction of water in the upward direction takes place through the xylem tissues as well as the process of osmosis. Okay. So one more experiment of transpiration. If we do all these experiments, you will get confused together. So we'll stop with this root pressure, thoroughly go through it, prepare well and come. And tomorrow we are going to talk about transpiration through stomata. How is the transpiration being done in the leaves? So till then, take care. See you all in the assembly. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz.